So, congratulations. You want to know why, right? I am congratulating you because you have officially, as of the reading of that gospel today, made it through the bread of life season. This is the fifth and final reading that we have been working our way through from the 6th chapter of John's Gospel. And in case it feels like you've heard some of this before, we actually kind of read it in a spiral where we read a little bit, and then the next week we jump back a couple passages and we read a little bit more, and then we jump back and we read a little bit more. So we've really dug into this bread of life stuff a lot over the last 5 weeks. Just to review, here's what we've been on this journey with Jesus, because back in the last Sunday in July, we heard that Jesus fed a crowd of 5,000 with just 5 loaves and 2 fishes. And then he walked on water. He did it in the middle of a storm, and he went all the way across the Sea of Galilee, much to the surprise of many who were there. And then the crowd tried to follow him because they wanted to know where Jesus had gone, and they wanted a little bit more food, because one meal, not quite enough. And when the crowd did this, Jesus started to talk to them in some mysterious and unusual ways. He said things like, "I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never be hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty." Now, this created quite the stir, all of these different things that Jesus has been saying about bread and about life and about abiding with him and knowing God through him. Some members of the crowd started to wonder how Jesus, the carpenter's son, could say stuff like this, and did that stop Jesus? Kept on going. And this is kind of the end of that entire conversation that we get today. So as you can see, people are still struggling with what Jesus is saying. And I think if we're honest, we say that we struggle with some of this too. And we've been trying to take it apart piece by piece, trying to figure out Sunday after Sunday, what exactly is he saying here? We've talked about it, tried to get our heads around this circular bread and life and heaven and eating and flesh and all of the things that he's saying. There's not a lot more that I can say today, and I'm going to have to admit to you all that I think I'm still a little bit with the disciples. This is difficult stuff. So Matt Skinner, who's one of the speakers on one of the podcasts that I love to listen to each week, suggests that part of what makes this difficult today is that our translation kind of leads us a bit astray. See, we have this modern approach to difficult to accept concepts. If you just think about it hard enough and analyze it, you can figure it out. But Matt Skinner recommends that a more faithful rendering of the passage, this teaching is difficult, you can accept it, would in fact be, this passage is difficult to listen to. This passage is difficult to hear. That's something completely different, isn't it? Because we're not being asked to accept it, we're just being asked to listen. In other words, it may not, in fact, be best for us to approach from a cognitive perspective. So that got me thinking. And I thought, instead of talking about it again, what if we were to step away from the thinking and dust off, I don't know, something called the spiritual exercises. Now, the spiritual exercises come to us through Saint Ignatius Loyola. I don't know if anyone knows who that is. Yep, Founder of the Jesuits. That's right, founder of the Jesuits. He was a 15th century monk, and he was alive in a time, first of all, the Middle Ages have spent a lot of time doing very academic theology, famous for how many angels can dance on a head pin. We rationally tried to figure that out. And he was also living at a time when the Protestant Reformation is happening all across Europe. People are busy talking about which doctrines and readings of scriptures they could and could not accept and why. How you interpret them. They were lots of talking and hence lots of arguing. Well, Ignatius, in the middle of all this, suggests that perhaps instead of talking and thinking, we might listen with our imaginations. And that by doing that, by listening with our imaginations, might find that we come closer to God, we come closer to hearing, and in fact, it might deepen our faith. We might abide a bit with God through Jesus. So here's how this works. In a few minutes, I'm going to invite you to still yourself and place yourself in God's presence. And, whatever works for you. If you need to close your eyes, great. If it's easier to keep your eyes open because closing your eyes is uncomfortable, that's fine too. But I will invite you to still yourself so that you can listen. And then we're going to recall together the whole passage. We're going to let it just sort of flow over us. And I'll read it to you. I've kind of separated it word by word, kind of statement by statement. So just listen to what you're hearing. And as you listen, allow your imagination to recreate the scene that's in front of you. Things like, what's the physical setting? How do things smell? What do you hear? What do you see? Who's there? Notice the people. And notice their faces, what they're thinking or feeling. And then after that, I will ask you to just pick one person, one of those figures that you want to have a conversation with. And we will sit quietly and you can have a conversation with them. Take a couple minutes to do that. And just as you're talking with them, you can ask questions, you can listen, and just remember that their feelings may not be your feelings. You may hear something that surprises you. See, we're being invited here into empathy, not to decide what we think, but to listen to how others are feeling. Does anyone have any questions about what we're doing?
When you say one of those figures, you mean anyone in the crowd or
Anyone
sitting next to us or something?
No, I mean someone in the story.
Yeah.
So like you could pick Jesus, you could pick a disciple, you could pick, I don't know, somebody at 8 o'clock said, oh, I think there's a whole bunch of women sitting over there and I'd like to talk to one of them. It'll be amazing what comes up when you start to use your imagination and to start to put yourself into the story this way. Ready for this?
No, but let's go anyway.
Okay. Thank you for being willing to give it a try. All right. And take a breath. And then go ahead and still yourself. And just gently place yourself in God's presence. Jesus said, "Those who eat my flesh and drink my blood abide in me, and I in them." Just as the living Father sent me, and I live because of the Father. So whoever eats me will live because of me. This is the bread that came down from heaven, not like that which your ancestors ate, and they died. But the one who eats this bread will live forever. When many of his disciples heard it, they said, "This teaching is difficult. Who can hear it?" But Jesus said to them, "Does this offend you? Then what if you were to see the Son of Man ascending to where he was before? It is the Spirit that gives life. The words that I have spoken to you are spirit and life. But among you, there are some who do not listen. For this reason, I have told you that no one can come to me unless it is granted by the Father. Because of this, many of his disciples turned back and no longer went about with him. So Jesus asked the 12, "Do you also wish to go away?" Simon Peter answered him, "Lord, to whom can we go? You have the words of eternal life. We have come to believe and know that you are the Holy One of God." So I invite you to recreate the scene in your imagination. What do you hear? What do you smell? Cast your glance around and think, what are you seeing? Maybe things that you didn't notice before. Now, come in from the setting and notice who's there. Look at their faces. What do they look like they're thinking or feeling? Are they talking about things or just listening? And now, one person, someone that you want to have a conversation with, someone that you can ask about their thoughts and feelings, about what's going on. Listen to what they're saying. Remember, their feelings may not be your feelings. Give us some time to sit and have this conversation.
disciples have really nasty VO. And they were working guys, out of nowhere. And Jesus probably didn't smell good either. You never hear about him taking a bath.
There was one.
Except for when he gets baptized.
Exactly.
And
Yeah, we know about feed, that's about it, huh?
yeah, he got baptized, so it's like he bathed 2 times in the whole time we knew about him. These were working guys, fishermen, so they probably smelled like fish guts.
How about anybody else? How was that? Share something that you noticed or smelled or saw or felt when you went into the place.
I had a great conversation with Peter. I always wanted to talk to Peter.
You always wanted to talk to Peter.
He's such a hothead. And yet he's so sober. So I asked him why. He
Why?
was so certain about who Jesus was.
Why, Peter, are you so certain about who Jesus is?
And he said, because I've seen what he does, how he treats people. I've seen the miracles. He said, but I've heard his words. And they come in my ears, but they bury themselves in my heart. And they are so full of truth. And he said, Peter said to me, you know what I'm talking about.
His words buried
You felt
themselves.
it too.
Yeah, he felt it too. His words buried themselves in his heart. Thank you for sharing that, Jane. Anyone else want to share something they saw or experienced? Annie?
I was talking to just people in the crowd, just ordinary people. They're
Ordinary
really
people.
scared. They're thinking, why have I got to preach somebody we're not cannibals?
Yeah.
They couldn't understand what was being said. And they found that really scary and weird, and they just backing away because they didn't get it.
So the people that you talked to in the crowd were frightened by the kinds of things. What does it mean to eat somebody? Yeah.
But they didn't think about it in a spiritual way. They thought about it in a very practical, human, alert way.
Yeah. They were being very literal, sounds like. Yeah. Thank you.
There was so much that happened to me.
Yeah, Steph.
It's amazing. But one main thing is that as a musician, I was kind of finally realizing that maybe some of the people there understood that when he was talking about flesh as food, it was kind of the closest he could get to describing what he's talking about. Just like when I say the word symphony. That's not a very interesting word, but when you hear one, that's an experience.
Yeah.
It's a pointing to something.
So the person you spoke to could experience it, and so it felt more real to them, is what you're saying.
A lot of us were there.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people that I know now were there too. And it was very trippy to go through time.
Oh. Thank you. Anyone else have something they want to share?
I was talking to a greasy teenager who was only there because their mother made them come. And they wanted to be at the marketplace with all of their greasy friends. And so they're starting out from the place of, I don't want to be here, all of this is stupid, I know everything, and you guys are all idiots, because that's where they are in life. And at what point they go from, are you serious? You guys are all believing in this eat his flesh and drink his blood, you are all idiots, to the part where they hear, like, where exactly do they start taking it a little more seriously, listening to what is being said? And at what point are they thinking, oh, only the Father gets to say who comes into heaven And of course, you know, they don't have context for a lot of this.
Yeah.
So they're equating this to their actual dad.
Interesting.
And you know, their actual dad that, you know, you see walking around the house in his underwear, grumbling, whatever, and thinking, what do I have to do? You know, what do I have to do to get that approval? What do I have to do to be the person that gets in?
Mm-hmm.
Where does that shift come?
Yeah, yeah. The teenager perspective. Thank you for listening to the teenager in the room. Yeah. Thank you. Anyone else? Steve? And then
all the folks who would have made Jesus king, who knew that we have this Solomon's temple here,
Yeah.
and the ark being moved from the north to Jerusalem, but the Assyrians took the north, the Babylonians took Jerusalem, that was all gone. They got to come back, but then Alexander brought the Greeks through before they'd done anything, and the Maccabees got sort of free from there, but didn't get their act together before the Romans came through. But somehow Herod, in our own parents' lifetime, built this temple, and maybe of all of the things that have happened, no guy has ever shown what this Jesus has been doing, and he's talking about, we can't even figure out what he's talking about. This is not the guy we were looking for.
yeah, so he feels different. You're talking to someone who's like, I thought I was expecting one thing, and Jesus, I see something here, but it feels different than what I was expecting. Huh.
I was having a conversation with an older woman who had been around some of Jesus's healing, and we were just sort of believing, but kind of going a little bit deeper. Like, well, I mean, what does he mean about it? Maybe he just means when we eat his body and drink his blood, it just means become more like Jesus.
More like him. More like him. Sounds like the older woman you were talking to is a little bit more open to some different imagery, huh? Yeah. Tina, you had something?
Yeah, just, I thought about the temple priests. I'm like, who is this guy? He is saying all kinds of really crazy things. And the guys that are with him look like they'd be quite at home in the Narcotics Anonymous meeting. I mean, how, I put my whole life into this thing, into following,
Serving God.
serving God, doing what he says to do, right? And here's this guy saying these really outrageous things.
Yeah. It's hard to swallow, isn't it?
It's hard to swallow. I mean, do I let him keep talking, or should I have some of the guys take him out?
Anyone over here on this side? All right. Thank you, everyone, for being willing to try this. I know it's really different. But I hope that you'll keep your listening ears on today, and you'll let some of this percolate through you as you go on with your day. I just want to close with a really beautiful poem that comes from Joseph Whelan. He's a modern day American Jesuit from Maryland. It's called Fall in Love. Nothing is more practical than finding God, than falling in love in a quite absolute final way. What you are in love with, what seizes your imagination, will affect everything. It will decide what will get you out of bed in the morning, what you do with your evenings, how you spend your weekends, what you read, what you know, what breaks your heart, and what amazes you with joy and gratitude. Fall in love. Stay in love.